Now we're going to take a look at disk images. A disk image is a file that contains files, folders, or even an entire hard disk, but it is stored as a file and you can open it to reconstitute the folders or the disk itself. And let me show you how you can construct a disk image. Inside Disk Utility, I go to New, and I'm going to create a disk image from a folder, and I'm going to create a disk image from my Documents folder. And what's going to happen is that all of the files in this Documents folder, as well as the folders within it, are going to be stored to a single file. And I'm going to save it, and I'm going to call it My Documents, and I'll store it in the root directory. And the first thing I'm going to do is store it as a read-only image. And what it does, it creates a file called mydocuments.dmg, and the disk image will be a single file that I can then copy off to archival storage. I can send it to someone. In other words, it's all there, somewhat like an archive. And one of the points about it is that I have all the contents, but I can't get to them until I open the disk image, which is good because it's a way of protecting the contents. Now, when I create a new disk image from a folder, I have several choices of format. I can create a compressed disk image, which, like an archive, takes out all the blank space. I can create a read-only disk image, which is a disk image that can be read, but I can't write to it. I can't update it even after I've opened it. Or a read-write disk image. And I also can create a master for a DVD or a CD. But that's not what I'm going to talk about in this section. Mostly I'm talking about these three options. And I have already done this, and I want to show you the difference. Here are the three disk images that I created. And I'll show the inspector window, which I opened by holding down the Option key. And if I created, do a little rearranging here, these three disk images are a compressed disk image, a read-only disk image, and a read-write disk image. The compressed disk image is 15.5 megabytes. The read-only disk image is 50 megabytes. And the read-write disk image is 65 megabytes. That's quite a difference. And let me come back here into Disk Utility and back into the Finder. If we look at the Documents folder, you'll see that in fact it is 52 megabytes. So what happens is that by compressing it, I save a great deal of space, and it depends on the contents of the folder that I'm turning into a disk image how much space I will save. If I create a read-only disk image, it will be about the same size as the folder, and if it's a read-write disk image, it may be larger. I can also create a new blank disk image, and I'll create the blank one and put it on my desktop. I can name it, and I can set the basic size for it. 100 megabytes is going to be fine. The format, and I can choose whether or not to encrypt it, and I am going to encrypt it. I can choose how I partition it, and I can also choose whether it's a read-write disk image or a sparse disk image or a sparse bundle disk image. A sparse disk image will grow as it needs to, as you add more data to it. A sparse bundle disk image, which is probably what you want, is going to be a disk image that will grow or shrink depending on the amount of data that's in it. So I'm going to create a blank image, disk image, for a volume name called My Image. And this is going to be the password for the disk image. If I type in a fairly ordinary password like the word password, the password strength is weak here. As soon as I type in something like PASS1234, notice how I'm getting a better, stronger password. If I add special characters to it, I get much better strength of the password. The best passwords are those that include letters, numbers, and special characters. And I'm not going to remember this one, and I'm going to go back and change this to pass. It's easily remembered and very weak. And the blank image is going to be created. Let me come back here and we'll take a look at the sparse bundle disk image that I just created. It's called blank image. If I double click, it'll be expanded and mounted here as a device, as an external disk drive. Now the point here is that you can create various types of disk images. You can then copy them off because they are single files until you mount them. Copy them off to archival storage. You can send them, particularly a compressed disk image is very useful to send. And by having the files and folders inside a disk image, it's one extra step to get to them, so that what you can do is compress files into a disk image, store them off, and they will not automatically open if, for example, one of them is an application and you double click a document that would otherwise open that application, because that is not visible as an application until you mount it. So that's disk images.